Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, people of the world. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by a special guest. Everyone's a special guest because they take their time to join me on the show. I'm joined by my great fraternity brother, Ryan Norman. And, he called me out. I'm going to be real. He said, man, Phil, when you going to have me on the pod? And I was like, bro, I'm so sorry. I had to get this on because one of the things I want to do is elevate my brothers that are doing great things, particularly within our chapter of Theta Rho Lambda. And from his young time, we'll say young time in Alpha, Brother Norman has done great, tremendous things that I think should be elevated to the Positive Philter audience. But not only in Alpha, but also his professional world. So we was going to have a really good conversation. He going to stun a little bit, Mr. Rising Brother of the Year. But this is really going to be a journey about his career and Alpha concurrently, because he's doing great things in his profession. But Brother Norman, give the listeners a little background on who you are.
Well, that was a very kind introduction, Brother Wilkerson. I appreciate that. My name is Ryan Norman. I am originally from Detroit, Michigan. I always lead with that because I'm a very proud son of Detroit. But again, from Detroit, currently living in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm also a proud Michigan Wolverine, go blue. And I'm a lawyer. So I went to American University for law school here in Washington, D.C., and I've been a lawyer for just over 12 years. I currently work for the government, so I'm a public servant.
I love it. And let's get back to the journey, because I think that some of the focus of this has always been a career-focused podcast for those that want to be inspired by careers. So, tell us a little bit about your growing up. Did you have lawyers in your family? What was your aspirations growing up as a kid from the D, as they say?
So I did not have any lawyers in my immediate family. I grew up as an only child, mostly with a single parent, my mom. And as my dad, who I did know and still do know, obviously, told me I wanted to be a lawyer since I've been about 10 years old. So I recently found some proof of that. I found a Student of the Week certificate from fifth grade, in which I said when I grew up, I wanted to be a lawyer. And so that turned out to remain true. And so, like I said, I've been proudly practicing. But for me, it was really because I like to debate. I like to discuss things. And I certainly have not been a shy person when it comes to engaging in conversations and, world events and all kinds of things like that. I really believe in standing up for what you believe. And apparently that's been true since a young age, and it remains true now.
So, the thing about the things about the misconceptions of lawyers, or where you were absorbing it, were you watching like law shows, and like, did you think that you was going to be in court? Because I'll share my background. When I thought of lawyers, I thought that was all courtroom. But when you see the real wide world of lawyers, some of them don't even go to court. They do a lot of paperwork and all that stuff. What was your view of lawyers before, growing up, while you were growing up?
So I would definitely have to say that it was initially the courtroom attorney. I knew that I wanted to be in that courtroom. I wanted to give that closing argument to the jury. I wanted to stand in the middle of the court, all eyes on me, and explain why my client either did or didn't do what they were accused of, or in the case of being a government attorney, explain why the other side was rightfully accused. So I definitely had those dreams of the big closing argument where people were just wrapped with attention, and I was delivering that hard-hitting, persuasive argument.
So, and another thought I thought about, going is like, did you, thinking about the skill of lawyers and that, did you like to read a lot? Did you read a lot growing up? Did you, or maybe writing, did you write a lot growing up? Talk about those kind of skills as a kid that you enjoy reading or writing or whatever?
Definitely. So I enjoyed doing both. I was definitely a big reader growing up. I would always have a book wherever I was going. And I've always found writing to come pretty easily. But I would say that the thing that translated the most was that I wasn't a shy public speaker. I did not mind speaking in public. So, of course, like a lot of people, it started in church with Easter speeches and speeches at Christmas time. It started with classroom presentations. And I found that while I would get nervous, I think that's natural. I found that it was easy to push through it. And at the end, when I was finished, people would compliment me, said that I had done well, and I came to really enjoy it. And so even now, I have not ever seen a microphone that I did not enjoy or want to take advantage of.
I can attest to that. Now, thinking about that, speaking, did you do any activities in high school that were kind of like that, like Model UN or debate club or anything like that?
So that's what surprises a lot of people. I did not. I took debate class, but I was not on the debate team. Most of my extracurricular activities involved things related to JROTC. So I was in Army JROTC in high school. That did provide some opportunity for public speaking. I would have to brief certain people. I started having leadership positions where I would stand in front of the battalion or platoon or company and give orders and things like that. But no, I actually did not really have a lot of debate style activities or things like that. I did do Model United Nations, so that was another opportunity.
I knew that. I had to say Model United. I knew it was one of those things. College. Why Michigan? I mean, like I said, you from the Detroit, so I'm assuming that's the big flagship of that. Was that a hard process? I mean, a very competitive. You were a top student. Talk a little bit about getting into Michigan.
So you're right. Being from Detroit and being from Michigan, you just grow up hearing about the University of Michigan. I guess there's another school there too, Michigan State. But no, I mean, like in a lot of states where you've got multiple state universities or public universities, I grew up knowing that certain families were either Michigan families or they were Michigan State families. I happen to come from a Michigan family. I rooted for Michigan football. And I was lucky in that this really outstanding university was right in my backyard. Of course, Michigan's always one of the top public universities in the country. And so for me, I didn't have to go very far to get an excellent education. So once I learned that we were a Michigan family and we rooted for Michigan football and that it was an outstanding school, I was all go for it.
So how about when you got there, right? Like I said, you had that lawyer vision, and the one, I don't even know what was your major at Michigan, and then what was some of the activities that you did in Michigan too, to prepare you for a career in law?
So that's when I really started to do the activities that you might expect. So I was a political science major. I knew I wanted to be a political science major. I went there during my freshman year to my advisor and said, I'd like to declare my major right now. At which point my advisor was like, hold on, you just got here. And I said, no, I know what I want to do. So I declared as soon as I could, which I believe was probably right toward the end of my first year at Michigan. And then I also knew I wanted to do criminal justice as a minor. So I did that as well. In terms of activities, I was pretty heavily involved in the Black Undergraduate Law Association, which is essentially the undergraduate version of BALSA, if anyone's heard of that, which is the Black Law Students Association, which is pretty common to most law schools. So I eventually rise up to be the president of the Black Undergraduate Law Association. And I really leaned into that. One of the things I'm most proud of is that I was able to get one of our fraternity brothers, former Mayor Dennis Archer, who's the mayor of Detroit, in to come speak to us at Michigan. He was one of those early alpha influences in my life. But I really did what I could to try to promote Black lawyers and folks who wanted to go to law school. Another activity I did, I was part of the Student Faculty Academic Judiciary Committee. So that was a joint student faculty organization where we essentially looked at cases of alleged plagiarism, decide whether we would sustain those, what would happen to the student after the fact. And so those were primarily the two things that I did.
I was thinking about that. Okay, couple questions branched off, right? Thinking about, the lens of the truth, or you look for people to be guilty, you look for them to be innocent. When you were doing it, like right as a student, were you always trying to give people the benefit of a doubt for the plagiarism, or you were like, man, I know this person cheated? What was your lens when you had to like review peers in their plagiarism and stuff?
Well, funny enough, it was actually good practice for what I ultimately decided to end up doing, which is to become a prosecutor, because I basically just followed the facts where they led me. A lot of people assume that I've got a particular position in mind in my current career, but even then, right, it's awkward on the one hand because these are my fellow students, right?
Yes,
Nobody wants to be responsible for sending another student toward academic peril.
Yes.
But at the same time, if the evidence is there and it looks like some plagiarism occurred, you feel compelled to find them responsible. So, it was a balancing act, but again, it was good practice for what I do in my career.
Yeah, and the thing about this too, like, was there, like seeing certain patterns, maybe systemically, like, dang, most of the plagiarism cases are biology students. Maybe the rigor is crazy. I don't know. Like, did you see a pattern was like, maybe this is more than just them cheating. This is a systemic university issue that we need to address.
Yeah, you tended to see issues arise in the harder classes where they felt that they needed to get a good grade in order to get a prerequisite in, the so-called weeder courses that were designed to be incredibly difficult. And so there's a great deal of pressure to do well. So you would see cases like that in those kinds of classes.
And then, another question that branched off from what you said earlier is like, what was the importance of joining Black professional focused organizations in undergrad, right? Like there is the NSBs and all that. And I think when I talk to students of all majors, I say, find your people, but find the intersections of your identity, but also that, kind of like the people that have the same, kind of goals. So like if you're a Black engineer, it's probably in your best interest to join NSB, be around that. Well, why was that important for you to join this Black lawyer association at Michigan?
Well, you sort of touched on it. The idea was that I wanted to find a group of folks that I knew would support me in my ultimate endeavor, which was to get a law degree. I knew even then that there were not a lot of Black attorneys in the world, and then even fewer Black male attorneys. And so my goal was to find folks who I knew supported that goal overall, who could help in all of the things that would lead up to it. So, for instance, for the Black Undergraduate Law Association, we did a lot of preparation and thinking about taking the LSAT, the law school admissions test, right? In order to become a lawyer, you got to get into law school. Sure. And so one of the things that we did during my tenure there was to have one of the testing organizations come and offer, discounts on test preparation and talk to us about the exam. We had the dean of the law school come speak to us about what the admission standards were and what were some of the common pitfalls for students of color who were applying to law school. So, that was really my goal, was to soak up as much information as possible. And then as I became an upperclassman, to start passing that along to others.
Yeah, what was like the kind of demographic? You said that, right? A lot of, I see this right now, Black male students, and I don't like using this like, they're the lowest of grades and all that, but I mean, more so like student leadership, particularly here at Mason, most of the student leaders of organizations are Black women, like, except for like collegiate Black men, but like NSB is a Black woman. A lot of the other ASA, African student, a lot of the student orgs related to Blackness, the leaders are women. Was that kind of the case with the Black orgs at Michigan?
Definitely. Absolutely. So I was part of the college NAACP chapter at Michigan, and that was led by some outstanding Black women leaders on campus. And then I attended Black Student Union events and a variety of, as you said, the affinity groups. Interestingly, the Black Undergraduate Law Association, while I was there, did tend to be led by men, but I think there were also some really strong Black women who were heavily involved. So before I became president, I was co-vice president, and my co-vice president was a Black woman who, at least recently, was the first assistant at the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office in Ann Arbor. And so she and I came up through the organization together. And I know that some followed after me.
So what I'm hearing too is there's a lot of correlation that a lot of the people that join these as student orgs went on and like became successful in their career. Is that kind of like, it was really just like, that was just the kind of like the pipeline of that student org is that there's the assumption that you're going to go and keep on practicing law, right?
Yeah, I think it's a very strong correlation. I mean, being a part of the organization, again, helps prepare you for what's to come. You get mentorship. Again, you get the benefit of the dean of admissions for the law school coming to speak to you. You get the benefit of this test prep company coming to speak to you. You get the benefit of a former mayor of the nearest big city coming to speak to you. Mayor Archer was the first African-American president of the American Bar Association, something that we were very proud of. And so having the first Black president of the American Bar Association come speak to our organization is exactly the kind of thing that the organization existed to do. So
talking about, you dabbled in mentorship, and I think you see it, you achieve it. Were there some professors or mentors at Michigan that really helped you or were really like your advisor, like some people that really helped you in that path to law school?
Absolutely. So at Michigan, I had a really prominent advisor in the advising office, Dr. Fontenot, who was really super supportive of me and again, and other students of color. But beyond that, I had another Black graduate student instructors, sometimes they're called TAs at universities, but basically was a PhD student who taught a law course within the political science department, who took an interest in mentoring me and talking to me about going to law school. And then, of course, I had professors on campus as well. So I did feel really supported. I will say that at PWIs, you do have to look a little harder.
Yes.
You have to be a bit more proactive about going to office hours and certain activities, because those mentors are a little bit farther and fewer between, but they are there. And what I found is that because of the context of being at a predominantly white institution, they're there to support students of color.
I love it. And so let's just get right to it about the law school journey. I mean, going to law school, why you came all the way to the DMV? I'm pretty sure if they're the top in undergrad, they probably have a law school program. And, I'm assuming Michigan has a pretty prominent law school. Why did you decide to leave the great state of Michigan for American?
Sure. I'll just be pretty open. I didn't get into Michigan Law School. I wanted to go. It was my dream to go there, but it wasn't to be. And the only reason I share that is because I think it's important for people to hear that sometimes things work out differently than you hoped or thought it would, but that didn't derail me. So just a very quick anecdote. I found out that I got into American University, Washington College of Law, on the very day that Barack Obama was inaugurated the term. So my friends and I had just watched the inauguration in Washington, D.C. I had applied to American, obviously, before that. And so we watched the inauguration. We're really happy. And so my buddy leaves my apartment, and there's a knock on my door maybe 2 minutes after he left. I thought maybe he had forgotten something. So I had told him, right, that I had applied to law school and that I was looking for, the long letter-sized envelope rather than the folded, more narrow envelope, because the big envelope was the admission packet, right? The you got in letter. The typical letter size was the not so good. Yeah. So my buddy had his hand behind his back, and I said, "Oh, did you forget something?" He goes, "Is this the size letter that you're looking for?" And he pulls this, packet with a folder in it out from behind his back, and it said American University. And of course, I ripped the thing open, and it said, "Congratulations, you've been admitted to American University, Washington College of Law." And I thought to myself, this is a sign. I just watched the first Black president get inaugurated in Washington, D.C. on the very day that I found out I got into law school in Washington, D.C. So obviously I did my research. The school was a great one. I knew that it prided itself on public service. And so ultimately I made a decision to go there, and it was a good decision.
Now, one of the things I'm thinking about too is that like you study political science, thinking about the law, wouldn't it like in my mind kind of make sense to be in that sphere of the Washington Capitol? Did that come into play with even applying in the first place to American?
Absolutely. And here's another funny story, which is I had never been to Washington, D.C. prior to getting into the law school. Now, I had long been interested in politics and followed it even as a kid. And of course, I just told you I was watching the inauguration. Yeah, I thought to myself, well, I can finally go where politics happens. And so my very first time to the city was on Admitted Students Day. And I dragged my mother around to every monument that we could fit in because I just wanted to soak it all in. So yeah, that was a big reason.
Yeah, we could talk about the whole law school journey, but thinking about this, what was some of the experiences that got you involved in law, but law that was connected to government work? Doing an internship. You got to do your internships through your law school time. Like, how did you start to like tie in that government stuff with your law studies while in the DC area?
Sure. So again, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer from a very young age. And funny enough, what I really wanted to do was to become a judge. And so I do still want to do that. That's my ultimate goal. But someone explained to me, well, you've got to be a lawyer first before you can become a judge. You can't just graduate from law school and be a judge. So I said, well, fine, I guess I'll find something to do until I become a judge. So I started looking up what the various careers within the legal field were, and I settled on prosecutor. The reason was that it was a public service job. I really believed in what the goal of prosecutors were, which was to, hold people accountable, but also represent the general public in making sure that they could just live their lives without, things happening to them. So I grew up in Detroit, as I said, and one of the things that happened was that I watched crime start to affect me personally, my mom and me. And so my house started to get broken into. Crime started to sort of take over the neighborhood. My neighbor's house was burglarized. My car got stolen out of my driveway. And I watched my mother grow more fearful of coming into her own home at night after working 8 hours a day. And so I watched how that affected her, which in turn affected me, which in turn affected our neighbors. And so I basically just decided that I wanted to do something that I thought would positively affect my community. So going into law school, because I knew I wanted to do that, right now you start finding internships. So I first interned my first summer of law school at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia, which is where I would eventually work. I did a few other things. I did mock trial. I traveled with the competitive mock trial team. I took a bunch of criminal law courses, of course, and basically just tried to hone my skills for the job that I knew I wanted to do and quite frankly felt that I was called to do.
Now, what was the learning curve? So, like you said the public speaking part, you love to read about the writing. What was some of the growth areas in law school? Like,
yeah,
like what was some of the things like this was not my strength, but I had to like still do it,
That's a great question. One of the things I talk to people about with regard to being a lawyer is that there are a lot of rules involved. I know on TV it looks like, I just walk into the well of the court and just start talking, and it's a lot more than that, right? There are rules of evidence. Just because I want this photo and evidence doesn't mean I can always get it in, right? I've got to lay the foundation for it. It's got to be relevant. What if there's something prejudicial about this piece of evidence? Yep. What if the other side is objecting and saying that evidence is inadmissible for the following 5 reasons, right? I can't just go and say,
here's the glove,
but I want it in, right? The court's going to say, but what is your basis for why this piece of evidence should come in? And so I just tell people, lawyering is more than just speaking. So the speaking part, as you say, that wasn't the hard part. It was learning all the rules.
Yeah.
And then there's a skill to courtroom lawyering as well, right? Where to stand. Why do you stand here versus over there? When can I approach the witness? When can I not? There's a bit of a dance to it. You can't just walk around the courtroom at will. That's a quick way to get yelled at by the judge.
Yeah, like that. Remember, real quick, remember that one guy that was like, that represented himself, that was yelling? He's like, I'm not. And you're like, sir, you can't do that, right? Like he was just yelling. You know what I'm talking about? So there's like a decorum to that.
Yes, there are. The courtroom is probably one of the last truly formal places where everything you do, when you can do it, how you can do it, again, to the point of when you can walk up to the witness, I have to ask permission. Your Honor, may I approach the witness? I can't just go walking up to the witness, right? That's going to get me yelled at. So learning that stuff was probably the most difficult. And then I would say those sort of doctrinal classes in law school, right? So for me, it's like, I know I want to be a criminal lawyer. So taking contracts and torts and property wasn't exactly what I was most interested in. For me, it's like, let me hurry up and get through this stuff so I can get to the good stuff.
Did you have to like practice in the mirror of how you stand and all that stuff? You know, like I'm thinking now, like when people do public speaking, the best way to practice is record yourself or see your whole body. It's not just talking. Like, what do I do with my hands and all that? Did you have to rehearse?
Absolutely. So when I was on the mock trial team, we focused on that a lot. One of the things that they really sort of hammered home was watching the throat clears, right? Everybody has an a like,
words, yeah.
right? And so it was things like learning how to just take a pause rather than having all of those uhs and ums. Now we all do it, right? It's just a human thing to do. But then we also were recorded. So you were right. There were occasions in which we would be delivering a direct examination or cross-examination or closing argument or opening statement when we would be recorded. And we could then see, oh, what's that awkward thing I'm doing with my hand that I didn't know I was doing? Why am I leaning that way? Why do I look up at the ceiling when I'm trying to think of something to say? And those are the things that really sharpen lawyers, is watching themselves, practicing, listening to yourself. We all hate to hear ourselves, but you start to notice the little ticks and things that we all have.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it too. Like I watch a lot. I watch Netflix, and one thing was talking about how how TV and sensationalized courtroom is. So they're on camera and they almost got to perform, like be a little theatrical, but they have to be, now I'm thinking about what you're saying, they have to be theatrical within the, like they can't just yell, they have to like know how to do it. So I'm pretty sure they rehearsed that.
Absolutely. And listen, real life courtroom litigation is a bit of theatrics. I sometimes share some of my closing arguments with my friends, and they laugh because you've got to have voice inflection. You speed up, you slow down, you get louder, you get softer, right? So if you're describing a particularly scary moment in a crime, for instance, you might lower your voice and speak more softly, right? As she was walking down the street, little did she know.
She's going to get mugged.
Right, exactly, right? And so you do have to practice that, but that's theatrics for sure.
Now, this is the pivot right here. Alpha. In this journey, man, you're doing it. You're doing your career. At what point did you want to add alpha to your journey in your life, as a lawyer and all that stuff?
Sure. So I first came to learn about our great fraternity in college. University of Michigan is home to Epsilon chapter, which is the 5th chapter ever founded. And so my first exposure was watching the brothers of Epsilon on campus, whether it was step shows, doing community service, walking around, just looking sharp and put together, being campus leaders and things like that. And so I initially was interested around that time, but it wasn't my time. So fast forward to fall 2022, I said to myself, this is something that I still want to do. This is still something that I believe I would fit in with. And so for me, Yes, it was about brotherhood. I know everyone leads with that, and that's not to take anything away from it. I was an only child, so that certainly was a major reason. But if I could offer another reason beyond the brotherhood, I would say it was Alpha's strong commitment to advocacy. So I just told you, right, I'm a lawyer. It's my job to advocate on a daily basis. And so what I noticed is that Alpha has this legacy of strong advocates, right? You start with our seven jewels, our seven founders who are advocating for themselves on the campus of Cornell University and other Black students as well at the start of the 1900s. Then our very mission statement declares that we're going to provide service and advocacy for our community. So there's advocacy again. We advocate when it comes to voting rights, right? One of our national programs is a voteless people is a hopeless people. That's advocating for people to go to the polls and to vote, right? And then you look at who some of our most prominent members are, our brothers, right? And there's some of our nation's greatest advocates.
Yeah.
You've got Charles Hamilton Houston, who was the mentor to Thurgood Marshall. Together, they helped dismantle, right, segregation in schools, right, with Brown versus Board of Education. You've got Dr. King, of course, but then you've got Andrew Young, Adam Clayton Powell Jr., and you can fast forward to today, right? Brother Governor Wes Moore and Brother Senator Raphael Warnock. These are all advocates. And so for me being legal minded, for me having my eyes on lawyering, right, I just saw advocacy over and over and over again, everywhere I looked. And so even amongst folks in my personal circles, right, my personal mentors, I'll shout one out later if I have the opportunity. But it's just that for me, it was brotherhood and then the history and the legacy of advocacy.
Now, how about just, you said Epsilon chapter, but then were there some peers in your American university experience in law school that you knew were alphas, or just like you said, in the working world, they start working, like you said, finding community in those professional spaces? Like, I'm pretty sure you joined Black lawyer professional spaces. Were there people in that space too that were alphas that kind of?
Absolutely. I always joked I couldn't escape alphas, right? But before I was one, I still saw them everywhere. Every time I would go into an internship or a pre-law event or a mixer of some kind, there was always an alpha in the room, and it was getting pretty sickening at that point. It's like, you all are everywhere, but that was also reinforcement for me that I too would fit in. So my mentor that I'll shout out now, his name is Fred Yett. I met him in my first summer at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C. He is an initiate of Gamma Iota at Hampton University, and he's been in the fraternity for 45 years. He just made the 45-year mark late last year. He also just retired from the government after 34 years of service. The reason why I think so highly of him and why he's my mentor is because as that first-year law student in an internship, he took me under his wing. He told me what it meant to be a federal prosecutor. He showed me around the office. He let me work on cases that I know other people would not have. And he just poured into me. And so while I was in law school, he became my mentor and still is. And there are others along the way that I met that were doing that exact same thing, who understood the assignment of pouring into people who are coming after you. And so, while I didn't know anyone in my law school class per se, throughout my internships during law school, I did meet a lot of alphas.
Now, was he like, I've met a lot of people that said they had these mentors and then they found out they were alphas after they became alphas, they never knew. Or there's other ones that was like, this guy was my mentor, but this dude was wearing alpha. Like, he was loud, like, I'm an alpha in every conversation. What kind of alpha was this mentor to you? Was he like a quiet one, like, oh my God, I did not know you were alpha? Or was he like, you already knew what it was when you met him?
He was more old school with it. So if you knew where to look, you could see it. He wasn't wearing the paraphernalia every day or anything like that. But when you went to his office, you'd see a little something here and there. Okay. Maybe there'd be a little slide mention of, I was with my fraternity brothers this past weekend. One of the things that he's known for is running the Dr. Martin Luther King breakfast every year. So he's a member of IUL over in Silver Spring, Maryland. And so, that's how I came to know. So I didn't know he was an alpha for sure, but it's funny. You're right. There are definitely sort of other types of alphas where
if you met my dad, you would not know he's Omega. Like, my dad don't wear nothing. He don't do this. He just remembers his life number, But then there's I got uncles that got they literally wear triple nalia everywhere. Like they got the watch, the hat, and it was like, dog, it's like a normal Friday. Right. So it's just different. But then it's very interesting because, as you reflect back, I had high school teachers or college teachers I never knew till I crossed, oh my God, that guy was an alpha. And then he's commenting on my Facebook, welcome to the brotherhood. So I'm not going to go through the process stuff. And you got there. I want to talk about your presence. You became an alpha. Congrats. What was the reception from your mentor?
Oh, he was super supportive. He was really proud of me. He congratulated me. I remember the first time that we gripped. It was amazing. He had been rooting for me. He knew I was interested. I had let him know that. And once I became a member, the same support that I had been getting from my first summer in law school just continued even more so. I mean, he continues to send me messages and root for me and all that. So it's been a wonderful experience.
What was one of his advices to you, right? Almost, and I say this to everybody, once you're in, now that's when the work starts. What was some of the things he said? Okay, welcome to the brotherhood, hit the ground running. What was some of his advice to you after you became an alpha?
Yeah, that was it. Get to work. Okay, you're here now. Get to work. Meet people, form relationships, form bonds, but find the place where you can be most useful, and then put all those skills to work. Right? You went to law school for a reason. You chose your career for a reason. Now it's time to put that to work, and so I took that seriously.
Now, inversely, after going to a bunch of chapter meetings, those are the first times I've seen the Robert's Rule of Order and all that stuff. And then I go to a normal work meeting. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is stuff that we do in our chapter meetings, and inversely. But in your experience, you've experienced that before. So when you went to earlier meetings and stuff, when did it dawn on you yo, this is stuff I know how to do. I'm in this space. I have this life experience as a lawyer, share a little bit about that.
So you brought up one of the things. So I had obviously been in organizations before. Some of them used parliamentary procedure like Robert's Rules of Order. Others were more loosely organized. But that was one of the things that I came to appreciate, is that we're an organized bunch. We believe in our Robert's Rules of Order. And so that was familiar to me. So currently, I'm the chapter parliamentarian, the holder of the Robert's Rules of Order parliamentary procedure book. And that's something that was a bit comforting for me to do, was to use the rules and to learn them and to apply them, because it's something that I had dealt with before. But even beyond that, right, this is a meeting where good ideas are heard, they're implemented, they're supported. This is an organization where we put our head down and we get to work. And luckily, I've been a member of organizations where that was a similar mission.
Now, also, I always say that servant leadership gives you an opportunity to try things that you don't get a chance to do. So, for instance, I don't have supervision experience here at Mason. I'm not a supervisor, but I could chair something. What has been an experience within Alpha to help you grow as a professional that you might not get in your pretty, amazing career as a lawyer? Something to stretch yourself or grow that, you're using Alpha to grow that experience that you might not get in your normal 9 to 5.
Oh, that's another good question. Well, so one of the things that I've been able to do is help lead our chapter through some changes to our general organization's governing documents. And so I had never really led a delegation in such a serious way before. I had participated in looking at the rules, but I had never really participated in studying them to the extent that I did. So by way of my position, I'm also the chairman of our Constitution Committee with the Theta Rho Lambda chapter. And so it became my job to study our documents, to figure out what the changes were going to be that were proposed, to then brief the chapter on what those were, to lead a delegation to our Constitution Convention in Chicago last year, and to come back and make a recommendation to the chapter about what we should do with those changes that were proposed. And so I can honestly say I had never really dived that deep before. It stretched me because I couldn't do this at a superficial level. I really needed to work hard at it because I knew that the rest of the brotherhood would be looking to me to explain everything. And so I just had the opportunity last weekend to speak to brothers from across the Commonwealth of Virginia at our state convention and to explain to them what our new governing documents look like. So that was something that it challenged me, but I enjoyed it.
Now, thinking about that, we're ideating out loud. How do you think that could transfer to your normal 9 to 5 then? Like that experience could transfer to your 9 to 5. Like now that I went through that experience, I feel like I can maybe try this in my normal 9 to 5.
Yeah, I would, for that, I would zone out or zoom out a little bit and say that being a part of Alpha has really reminded me of the legacy and the heritage that we as members of the Black community have emerged from and thrived from, right? So we know that there are a lot of world events happening that are hurting a lot of people. A lot of people are worried, stressed out, concerned. But when we look at the history of how the organization was formed, when we look at who the members of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated are, it's a constant reminder that we've survived and overcome obstacles to justice and access to voting and progress before. You need only look at, those prominent members. And so being a part of the organization has been an awesome reminder in these times that we can do it again. We are equipped to do this. We've done it before. One of the things I often think about, for instance, everybody knows Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. But one of the things I like to do is to put in context his work. All right. So I looked up some dates. So Dr. King was initiated into our fraternity in 1952 through the Sigma chapter in Boston. He was 23 years old when he was initiated into the fraternity. Now, get this. Just 3 years later, in 1955, at only 26 years old, he's leading the Montgomery bus boycott that stemmed from Rosa Parks being asked to give up her seat. Yeah. So he joins Alpha, and then 3 years later, he's leading a bus boycott that would forever change the course of history, not only in Montgomery, but throughout the nation. And so that's an Alpha man, right? There goes an Alpha man. So again, knowing the history, not just knowing that Dr. King was a part of the organization, but knowing the history of what we were able to do helps me to remember, we might be in tough times, but we can do it.
I ain't gonna lie, two things, remarkable. I thought about this when I turned 40, that Martin Luther King died at 39 years old and accomplished so much. I'm like, Jesus, like, what kind of life I'm living? I'm at 40 and I didn't even have to think. But also on the flip side, rather than making it self-deprecating, it gave me a lot of juice. Like, I ain't gonna lie, like, I've not say I always struggled being confident or anything, but it gave me a little bit of a cape, like a little bit of a persona.
Sure.
To say, if being part of this historic thing, I'm still in my lane, but like that gives me a little confidence. Like I'm an alpha man and yada, 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 and just gives you a little confidence. And I think that has permeated into thinking of like, I never would have thought I could get a PhD. But like, I'm in that, Joe. I'm like everyone in their mama is an alpha smart. You know, like,
Right.
I remember I went to my first info session and they like make you stand up and tell you like everyone had a master's. Like, what you mean? Like, you know,
Yeah,
like
it helps for me
like
too.
that's the standard. That's like that's how you stun on people is like how smart you are, right? And so I'm like, of course I can get a PhD. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. It's a weird confidence boost that I got.
I agree. It helps me in my career too. Again, right? People know Thurgood Marshall, but people often forget that his mentor, Charles Hamilton Houston, also an Alpha, came before him and was the first dean of Howard University's law school. So I'm sitting in my office going, "Oh boy, what am I going to do?" And then you go back and you look at some of these folks who came before us and all of the things that they did, and you're like, you know what? I could do a little bit more, and I will do a little bit more.
Yeah, and also think about it is like, thinking about it historically, I'm like almost coming from a place of privilege. Like, it's not like I'm not the only, right? Meaning like this, like I don't have to like Thurgood Marshall's doing it, and he was like literally people getting lynched. Like I have a privileged life of challenging systems and not face the same adversity. So therefore, it's almost like I'm not going to say I can't complain. Really, just do the work. If they can do it with these crazy circumstances, I could do it in this current space now. Like I still have a livelihood, I still have a car. I still have.
Right.
I wasn't doing it where my livelihood was completely threatened. Right. So I can do a little bit of work now from this actual present place of privilege that our forefathers didn't get, like, or the Jules, for instance, like they didn't have like more than them to talk to, like we got like we can do a NESB in Black communities at our university to have support, so I kind of use that as a framing. So, brother Ryan, we probably could have a part 2 and all this, but we're just gonna get right into shot for shot. You get to ask me any random question. I get to ask you any random question. You want to go first? I go first.
You go first.
All right. So, what are your thoughts on the Fab Five as a Michigan person? Thoughts, influence, growing up, just Fab Five.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I love the Fab Five, right? You got five Black kids playing at Michigan. They get to the championship game. They go back again. The fashion influence, right? A lot of people don't realize the whole black shoes, black socks with the baggy shorts, right? We can thank Fab Five for them. But when I think about them now, I really think about them in the context of I'm glad that they are reunited and participating at the university again.
Okay.
It took years for all 5 of them to be in the same room due to their own sort of concerns with how the scandal went down at Michigan and the fact that Michigan wouldn't hang their banner following the Ed Martin scandal. And so when I think about them now, I'm just happy that they are back, that they show up to Michigan basketball games. Our most recent basketball coach prior to the current one was a member of the Fab Five. So I'm loving it. They're influential. I hope they stay around. Go Blue.
Now think about it. I mean, this is another context. What age were you when they were doing that, John? Because I remember it kind of in my head, but it's like 90-something. I can't remember what years it was.
Yeah.
You watched on TV and was like, what was the city like when he was watching them do their thing?
I can't say that I was watching them. I would have been young too. That we're talking the early to mid 90s.
Yeah.
I can't say that I was watching, but I did hear about them, right? Like it was all over because a lot of them were from Detroit. So local media would talk about them all the time.
Yep.
And again, Michigan is not far from Detroit geographically. It's only about a 40-minute drive. So we heard about it for sure.
What about the and this might I say I lied, I'll do another shot. Do you remember the brawl jump? The brawl between the Pacers and
oh yeah, Malice at the Palace.
Malice at the Palace, that's right. Yeah. Do you remember that one at all?
That I do. I remember that very well. I remember watching that on TV. That was insane. And that changed a lot about how we watch basketball games now. Now, whenever you go to an NBA game, they make that announcement, right? Please don't leave the stands. Don't throw things. You'll be ejected and subject to other fines and penalties. I don't think they were regularly making those announcements before
I
that.
remember watching that too. I kind of remember the time, but I remember watching on TV. It was like, is this really happening in real life? And
Right, right.
I was like, what? Like, I remember that. Like, I gotta remember the date, but I remember watching it on TV. There's certain sports moments that stand out. Like, for instance, this is like a total pivot. I remember the OJ White Bronco chase. I
Yeah.
remember that while a kid watching the NBA Finals.
Wow, that's incredible. And there's another alpha connection. So Christopher Darden is a member
Yeah.
of our fraternity too.
Oh, I
And
remember that. Yeah.
you
All
know,
right. What's your question for me?
great question. So I know that you just passed 7 years in the fraternity. What's something that you know now that you would tell young Phil Wilkerson who crossed 7 years ago as a 1 month alpha?
Yeah. Okay. So one, I mean, my name is Brother Wilkerson. No matter what, that was what I would told myself. Like, going in there, I think there's a lot of intimidation, to, your first year be seen, not heard, and thinking like in my mind, like, nah, like I should be heard. And I wish I would have had a little bit more juice than I have now. I have a lot of juice now. If you know me, you see me now. Like, I'm like, all right, whatever. Even if someone says something, like, whatever, I let it roll off my back, because the veil has been lifted. I remember thinking how great this organization was, and that I had to be a whole new person once I'm in, and level up kind of thing. And I was like, you know what? Like, now that I'm in, it's just like any other organization where it's just great men doing work. But like, I'm more than capable. If I wasn't capable, I wouldn't have been in. Like, if that makes sense. And so, like, I have a lot more confidence. I could, and I wish I would have told myself, be confident. Also, I would have told myself, learn a little bit more about how to speak up appropriately. Robert's Rule of Orders and make motions and all that stuff. So that's one thing I would have told myself. Now it's like, you're here for a reason. And also, I would say, don't be a super alpha. Like, it took me a lot of times to like realize what's my lane. I ain't trying to be on every committee. I ain't trying to do everything. Honestly, I'm not trying to go to everything. I'm doing the things I like to do within the organization that gives me like, it's almost like a symbiotic feeling. Like, I like media, so I like to be on the National Sphinx Committee. Like, I want to learn about journalism. I like podcasting or media. So using my skills and things I already like to do. I like public speaking, so I like to be a judge for oratorical contests. That's my lane. I'm not trying to do everything, but I want to definitely be involved with the oratorical contest. So I would have just told myself, don't be trying to be like a super alpha and do everything. Stay in my lane and do the things I like, that I know that I want to do within it, that gives me something as well as I give to something else. But also, I would have told myself, be more confident. Um, I say this now, like, I communicate regularly with past President Mark Tillman.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to him. And he just treats me like a normal person. And I'm thinking about that in deference. I still call him President, past General President Martin, Brother Martin, I still give him deference. But at the same time, I'm talking to him like a normal person. Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And he is of, stature within Alpha, but he's also just a peer in a sense. Like, I don't know how I can call it a peer, but he is a peer, or I met the VP of HR used to be here at Mason, was an Alpha. And I talked to him like, deference, like, he has a high position at Mason, but at the end of the day, he's still a brother. Hi, I'm Brother Wilkerson, and I want to introduce myself. And so I've learned that too. Like, if there's an alpha of stature, I don't care. I'm gonna walk up to you and say, hey, I want to introduce myself. I'm Brother Wilkerson. Because at that space, I'm just as confident. And I wish I would have told myself that. Once you're in, go talk to any alpha.
Mm-hmm.
Go, with respect, yes, how you doing, sir, and all that. But I can talk to anybody in alpha. You got letters on, I got letters on. We're both alphas. You know better than me.
I agree with that.
And I think that's my thing. Also, but you can be confident without being disrespectful. You can be confident without being arrogant. I still show deference, but I'm also showing confidence in myself.
Right.
That's things I would have shared. Like, be confident in yourself and know that you earn a space. If you want to say something correctly with decorum, say it. read the room, but you should be able to say whatever you want to say. So that's what I was saying. Thank you for the question. All right. So this is the part of the show we're landing the plane. Shout outs and plugs. Show love to anyone you want to show love to, and then plugs things that you want the listeners to be aware of, ways to connect with you, etc. The platform is yours.
I appreciate that. So of course I'm going to shout out my line brothers. That is my ace brother Sam Gaynor, and then also my deuce brother Tylen Scott. Of course, we make up the Triad Fall 2022, so I want to shout them out for sure. I've already shouted out my mentor, Brother Fred Yet. Just want to thank him again for being such a wonderful mentor, both to me in my career and in Alpha. And then I want to shout out our chapter, Theta Rho Lambda. And the reason is that, in the 2 years that I've been a brother, all of the brothers have really put their arm around me, supported me, encouraged me. I was truly honored this past fall when I was named Rising Brother of the Year. I didn't set out when joining the organization to receive awards, but I'm so grateful that the work that I've done was recognized and that I continue to be encouraged to pursue whatever it is I want to accomplish within the organization. And then I'm going to turn my last shout out into a gratitude post, which is to you. So I'll tell the listeners that Brother Wilkerson was the first Alpha that I spoke to when I was getting acquainted with the chapter before I was an Alpha. And I want to thank you because you were very kind. You gave me that gentle push that started me along the way that's led to this moment. So I appreciate that. And then the last thing I'll end with is a topic that we talked about, which is mentorship. I want to encourage all of your listeners to be a mentor and to seek mentorship too, right? It's a two-way street. I could only have gotten where I am because I had good mentors, and I really strongly believe that it's my obligation, it's my duty to then mentor other people. So if you don't have a mentee, go find one. If you need a mentor, seek one out as well. And I strongly believe in that.
Yeah, 100%. I think, and I'm glad you brought that up. Now I'm gonna drop a little nugget. We have another hat that we both wear in regards to scholarships for young people in the DMV. We're both on the Dr. William T. Syfax Foundation. So we're thinking about pouring into the next generation. So I might even put the link. We got to be in the DMV. So if you're in the DMV, you gotta actually, be in the DMV to be a scholarship recipient. Sorry. But additionally, thinking about the mentor, I wouldn't have been where I was without people that guided me away. And so if you're listening to this and you're looking for someone and guidance in different career paths, feel free to, listen back to old episodes of Positive Filter and find someone, whatever career path that's a guest, and feel free to reach out to them. That's why I do these podcasts too, because everyone's sharing their information to be connected, So thank you, Brother Norman. You're doing great things. I've learned from you in your short time, Alpha, that work can be done no matter how short you are in Alpha, that, if you have ideas and confidence and know your stuff, you can make an impact, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, don't matter. Once you get those letters, you can make a difference. And I've seen that through your efforts. Positive Filter listeners, as you know, every episode is dedicated to the memory of my late father-in-law, Jeff Kirsch. So please consider donating to the Jeff Kirsch Anti-Hunger Fund for all the work he did fighting food insecurity. Additionally, if you're part of the Mason Nation, please consider submitting a Pats for Patriots to show love to someone else. That's been a great episode. Please consider being kind to people and continue to listen to Positive Filter. Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.